All right, today we're going to be talking about artificial intelligent search engine optimization. And most of you think, or maybe some of you think, that SEO is kind of the same as it's always been. This is doing tasks or activities online to help you rank higher. And we are right in the middle of a massive shift in the way that SEO works and functions fundamentally, and also in the way in which a company like My Social Practice actually performs SEO on behalf of their client. I've called this presentation, How Do I Build Authority to be Recommended by AI Search? And the key word in that phrase is authority. We're going to be talking about what AI engines, search engines consider to be authority, how to improve your authority, which will inevitably end up helping you be recommended more often when someone goes to, say, ChatGPT or Google Gemini or Perplexity or Grok or any one of these other AI search engines and asks a question relatable to dentistry, whether they're looking for a new dentist or if they have questions about certain services or whatnot. So the goal here of this presentation is to help you understand how the AI search engines work and what things you need to do in order to be more often recommended. Now, there's this concept in business called early adopter advantage. And I want to give you two examples of early adopter advantage, because what I'm going to be talking about today is kind of like looking forward to what's happening and where I think things are going to be going and where most of the people online that do SEO, like My Social Practice, think SEO is headed. Back in 2010, Google reviews became part of the Google business profile listing. So your listing in Google, it's the little pin in the map, was really just a business listing when it initially launched. But Google added this aspect to it where a patient could review a doctor. And back in 2010, no one really knew what the value of that might be. Reviews were not part of really any kind of a social proof experiment at that point. So to think, if I get a Google review, will that actually help another patient decide to choose my practice? Like, nobody really knew if it would work. And we leaned into it as a company. We leaned into it. We started offering a Google review service. And I remember talking to doctors, and a lot of them would say, I don't know if I want to pay for this service. I'm not really sure if reviews are going to be that big of a deal. If you were looking in 2010, if you're looking forward in time, nobody had an idea of whether or not this is going to be a valuable activity or not. In hindsight, we all know that Google reviews are a massive part, not only of developing and establishing your social proof and encouraging patients to come to your office, but it also became part of the algorithm for ranking. So if you had more reviews, and if you were getting reviews on a kind of a cadence, right, you were getting them often and had a lot of them, you actually ranked higher. There was a gentleman, a doctor, he's now retired, a good friend of mine, his name is Len Tao. He's branded himself as the reviews doctor and just harps on this and speaks every week across the country somewhere about the value of a practice establishing their authority and their social proof through getting more Google reviews. I was talking to him a couple weeks ago, and he tracked all of his patients for 10 years, where they found him online or how they found him. And Len was one of the doctors that leaned into getting more reviews or getting lots of reviews because he thought that it might end up being a great marketing activity. So when he had 500 reviews, most of the practices around him in his area in Philadelphia had like 25, 30, 40 reviews. So he really leaned into this and tracked how all these patients came and found him. And he had acquired 1,625 patients over the course of 10 years, specifically related to finding him on Google Maps and reading his reviews. Now, you can do the math, right? 1,625 new patients at whatever your lifetime value of a patient might be adds up to millions of dollars. And so this early adopter advantage concept is basically this idea that when some new technology, some new idea comes into the market, some doctors or some business owners lean into it. And when they lean into it, they get an advantage. When Len had 500 reviews and everybody else had less than 50, by the time they got to 200 or 300 reviews, he had 1,000. And they just couldn't catch up to him, right? It's like this hyperbolic kind of curve, right? Where if you get started on something earlier than the rest of the industry, you have an almost an unfair advantage. Another example is when social media launched, and we were early on that. That's why we called our name of our company My Social Practice, because our first product was a social media service for dentists. We were the only ones doing it at that time. This is in 2009, late 2009, early 2010. And I know that we were the only ones doing it because I looked through the entire healthcare industry looking for companies that were offering a service to see if we could work with them, and there was nothing. We were the company that really leaned into it. And it was a little bit of a guessing game, like, is this going to actually play out? Is social media going to become a marketing strategy that will actually help a doctor find more new patients or retain patients? We guessed at it, and we put all of our time and energy and our money into this bet. But it played out. And for several years, we kind of like rode that social media wave, and we're known as the company that offers a great social media service for doctors. One of my first clients was a doctor by the name of Anissa Holmes. Yeah, she practices in Alabama. I think she might have sold her practice at this point. But when I met her, she was all in on social media. When we met her, she had around a couple thousand followers. This is not something like she kind of got it. Like everybody else in the industry hadn't even set up their Facebook pages at this point, and she already had lots of followers. But she started working with us as a client, and by the time we were done, she had close to 30, 40,000 followers. And it became the main marketing strategy for her. She didn't need to do any other marketing. And she was an early adopter. I recently brought her on to my podcast called Byte-Sized Podcast, and this is what she had to say about that experience.
It's early mover advantage is what you're talking about. And honestly, this is why I was number one in Google. This is why I had 50,000, because 2 years later, when I started teaching Facebook marketing and all of my Facebook courses, I was showing behind the scenes. I was showing my screen. I'm like, this is how you make a Facebook ad. Like I was showing it, and there were people, even dentists in my own community, that were taking my courses, and they were doing the exact same thing I was doing, but they were 2 years too late. And they could never, because guess what happened? The algorithm shifted. And so when people came in initially, for me, the only way that you would see my content again is if you were follow their page, because there were zero ads initially, right? Yeah. So when ads came along, the algorithm changed. All of a sudden, I had an unfair advantage. And I will tell you, that is what's going on right now.
By the way, if you're interested in following the Byte-Sized Podcast, you can shoot this QR code. I come out with a new video every week. I'm bringing people on like Anissa or Len Tao or other key opinion leaders in the dental space to talk about what's working, to kind of get rid of a lot of the misinformation out there. But I'd love for you to follow on Byte-Sized Podcast. But getting back to Anissa, what she was talking about was the early adopter advantage. She got started, and even the people that she started teaching, other doctors she was teaching on how to do this, couldn't keep up with her. And she got so good at it, she eventually started her own marketing firm called Digital Floss. Great company. And I guess the reason I'm saying this is because this is happening again. We are right in the middle of a shift, and there are going to be doctors and dental practices who lean into AI search engine optimization, and they're going to have an unfair advantage. And so what I'm hoping today is that as you look at this, you actually take some of this information and start doing it in your practice, or get some help in helping you to be recommended by AI search. So I'm going to talk about the shift that's happening right now, the shift between how patients used to search and where we're moving. We'll talk about how AI establishes authority, and then we're going to talk about 5 sources that build authority, and then I'll give you some free resources at the end for you to kind of get started. So here's what's going on. Right now, consumers are shifting from using traditional search, like Google's traditional search, to using systems like ChatGPT, Perplexity, Grok, some of these other large language models. We've seen about 10 to 15%. I've even seen some reports up to 20% of Google's search traffic disappear because consumers prefer to use AI search over traditional search. And when that happened over the last couple of years, Google freaked out because search is a $2 trillion business. The way that Google makes their money is people use their search engine and they run ads. And the ads feed, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's a significant source of all the income that Google makes. I think it's close to maybe around 80%. Okay. So when people don't use Google's search engine and go use ChatGPT, they're missing out on ad revenue. because the search traffic's going down through their search engine. So Google panicked, and Google built their own AI search engine called Gemini. And Gemini, if you've been on Google lately and you type in a search phrase, you'll see the AI overviews right at the top. That's Google's first solution to competing with ChatGPT. And if you've used ChatGPT or Google Gemini's AI, the search result, they're actually really, really good. It's actually a better model to find the right information online. AI search engines just provide better answers than traditional search. There's a really easy analogy to understand what's happening, and as I call this the librarian analogy. So if you're as old as I am, you remember there was this place called a library where you would go and you would check out books or do research. And so if you're studying for school or whatever it might be, you'd go there, you do some research, and you'd study for a class. And what you do is you'd walk in to the librarian and walk up to the librarian and say, I'm doing research on this. And they'd maybe help you find the books that you needed to check out. And you go check the books out, you'd read it and do your research, and then go ahead and take your test. That's like traditional search. Okay. The books that you get at the library are like the links that you get in a search engine, right? So if you go to a search engine like traditional search and you type in a question, you get all these links, right? And then you click on the links and you go do your research and you make a decision. That's kind of like the librarian, the librarian example. What's happening is this. Now, when you go to the library, you walk up to the librarian and you say, I'm doing research on this topic. I need to study for it. And the librarian just gives you the answers. You don't have to do the research. The librarian's done their research for you. So what's going on here is the research portion of that process of getting information is being done by AI. Now, somebody might think, oh, that's making us stupid and we probably should do the research. But the reality of it is that people are lazy. They don't want to have to do their own research. And if they can get an AI to do the research for them and it's good, the results come out are actually good, people are going to stop doing their own research. They're going to lean on AI to do the research for them. That's why ChatGPT is such a great search engine. You ask it a question, and the more clear your question is, the better the result becomes, and you get what you want. So it's inevitable with the capabilities of AI, and as people get better and better at using AI, that they're going to get used to how to communicate with an AI system to get the result that they want. So that's kind of what's going on. And because of this, and because it's obvious that human beings would prefer to use AI to do searches, Google is basically announced that they're going to be moving to what's called full AI mode. And it's probably going to happen sometime in 2026. Nobody's exactly sure when it's going to launch, but it's going to launch. And what full AI mode is this, is when you go to Google and you type in your question, there will no longer be links. It's just going to be the AI giving the result. It'll be just like going to ChatGPT. So I want you to think about that for a second. SEO for the past 20 years has been, how do I get my website to rank high in the search engine so somebody will click on it and go do research about whatever their question is, and then call my office. That's not going to happen any longer. We're moving to an era where we're going to ask a question to AI and it's going to give us the answer, and we're not going to have to click through to a website to do our own research. And so there's this phenomenon called the zero-click reality. Zero clicks, what that means is when someone goes to search to Google and they do a search, they don't end up clicking on anything. They get all the information on that page, but because that page has everything that they need, they don't have to go do their own research. They don't click. They just make a phone call, or they schedule or do whatever they need to do to get their answer, or the answer's right there. Zero clicks currently are approximately 60% of all the searches on Google on a desktop and 77% on mobile. So they're already significantly high. And when Google moves to the full AI mode, the prediction is that it's going to go to between 85 to 95% of all searches will have no clicks. So your search traffic is probably going to drop. The estimates are between 25 to 75%. So it's a pretty wide range. I'm not exactly sure where it's going to go, but search traffic is dropping. So when you look at your website and you look at the amount of people that come to your site and you see it dropping, it's not because you're dropping because you're not doing your SEO correctly. It's dropping because nobody's going to click to your website, or very, very few people will click to your website, because the AI search engine, its response and the recommendation that it makes in that response will have everything that that patient needs, and they'll act on that response. So if I go to Google and I search, I need to find the best dentist that's open on Fridays and accepts Delta Dental, and it says, go talk to A, B, or C practice, and it has their phone number right there on a link to schedule, I'm not going to click to the website. I'm just going to call the office, or I'm going to schedule. That's where we're going. So the way to think about this, the way to shift your mind, is that AI recommendations, or the way in which the AI is responding to a query, that process is, if you treat that like a referral. So if ChatGPT recommends your practice and you say, hey, I just got a referral from ChatGPT, that's the way to think about this, then you can start measuring how your referral network is working. So that's my recommendation, is to think about not ranking necessarily, but how often are you recommended by AI as a pipe of new patients coming into your practice? Now, in order to do this, what you have to do, in order to improve your recommendations, what you have to do is become what's considered the dental authority. We use that word authority, it's not my word, it's Google's word. It's ChatGPT's word. The AI search engines want to provide the consumer, the potential patient, with the authority in your community. Okay. Now, authority is difficult, because authority, when we talk about AI search engines, isn't just like, I'm the best dentist, or I'm the most, I've been around longer than anybody else. I've been established for longer. When you build authority in a human to human relationship, you can look at the patient in the eye and you can shake their hand and you can show them how much you care and build trustworthiness or authoritativeness, right? You can't do that with AI, right? AI is trying to predict who's the dental authority in the area to include them in the recommendation. So what you have to think about here is like, well, what is the AI search engine looking for to establish authority? Okay. If we can figure that out, then you can create content that will then infuse or inform the AI search engine that you are the authority, and then you become the recommended practice. So I'm going to be using the word authority throughout this presentation. And the idea is like, how do we create AI authority or digital authority? What are we doing? So let's talk about how AI establishes authority. And in order to do this, we need to talk about how it used to work and how it works now. So the way that search engine optimization worked in the past is you would look at the queries that people would search. So your patients or potential patients would go and they'd search a question like, who's the best dentist in Miami, Florida? And what the search engine would do would take that query, and then it would go out and look for a website or a blog post that's most closely related to that keyword phrase. So they call this keyword optimization. So you're looking at this specific phrase and you're trying to like match it with something that's online. So if there was a doctor in Miami, Florida, and they had an article, like a blog article that says, who's the best dentist in Miami, Florida? That's the name of the article. It was likely that that article might show up in search. So it was a very, very simple match the keyword to the exact same phrase on a website somewhere. Okay. And then that's how you would get ranking higher in the search engine. So for a search engine optimization company, what we would do is we would just write article after article after article with different keyword phrases. I mean, this is like a dumbed down version of what you would do, but it's the gist. Okay. So it was a rinse and repeat kind of process. That's basically how SEO happened in the past. Today, with AI SEO, it's totally different. So with AI SEO, here's what happens. First of all, people are not asking short phrases anymore. They're asking very, very long search queries. There's two reasons for it. One is that most people are starting to use voice search. So they're searching on their phone, but they're using their voice. They're not typing it in. And same thing on their computer. And when you speak, you can speak a lot quicker, and you may not speak in like full sentences. You might have run-on sentences. There might be ums and ahs or whatever so these phrases are getting really, really long. The second issue is that you'll notice if you've been using AI and you've been playing with ChatGPT or Google Gemini, the longer your queries are, the better the result is. The more context that you give in your query, you get closer and closer and closer to the actual result that you're looking for. So the actual process, like the interaction with AI, is one where we are being trained as human beings to give the AI more information in order to get what we want back and to get closer to what we want. Now, what happens is AI takes that search phrase, okay, and it's not looking for a particular article that has that title. It actually breaks it up. It looks at the question and breaks it up into what are called subqueries. And it'll be a dozen to maybe 24 subqueries. So this particular phrase, I think I may need my tooth pulled. I don't have insurance and I want someone great but affordable. Who do you recommend near me? The AI will look at that phrase, and before it goes out and starts looking for information online, it'll break it into these subqueries like top-rated dentist for tooth extractions, or affordable tooth extraction, or same-day tooth extraction, or whatever it might be. Okay. And rather than searching for that main phrase, these subqueries go out and it tries to find little chunks of information that answer the subqueries. So it reaches out, grabs all these chunks of information to answer the subqueries, brings it into its brain. Okay. And it's looking at, and it's not just looking at stuff on your website now. It's looking at your reviews. It's looking at forums, articles, your web pages, blog posts, social media posts. It's now looking at all of the content in your social media posts, directories. It's going everywhere, but it's trying to find an answer to the subquery. When it finds a little chunk of information, it brings it back into its brain and it comes up with its own response. It's not just repeating the information that it's finding, it's training the AI to give a response based on the information that it grabbed. Once it's done that, you get your recommendation. And in the recommendation, there are citations and there are recommendations. The citations are where it went to grab the information. And then you have the recommendation, which is like, hey, go see Dr. So-and-so, or go see one of these 3 dentists. Okay. So you're getting a recommendation and you're also getting citations. So the difference there is that when you think about what you actually do to try and get the search engine to recommend you, you're not optimizing a full blog post for a short key phrase. You have to optimize a blog post for the subqueries, which means you actually write the content differently. Okay. That's with blogging, but you got to be super aware that it's going to all your social media posts and it's looking what people are saying about you or how they're commenting on your social media posts. It's looking at your reviews now. It did not used to do this. So if you have lots and lots of great reviews and they say awesome things about you, or if you have lots of social media posts that actually get tons of engagement, that all feeds into the search engine, the AI search engine. So now what I want to do is I want to talk about the 5 sources, because I mentioned that they go out and they look at different sources. I want to talk about 5 sources that are the 5 most important sources where an AI goes to get information. And by knowing this, we can then say, okay, well, if it's going here and it's getting information from this source, what do we do to become, be put inside of that source? Okay. So we're going to talk about 5 of them. Again, this is all about feeding that authority idea, right? These AIs are looking at these sources to establish authority. So how do we help you become the authority in your area? Here are the 5 sources: your website, your Google business profile, your social media accounts, online directories, and user-generated content. We're going to talk about each one of these, and I'm going to give you I'm going to tell you what to fix or what to look at in order to make sure that these sources are built correctly or you're doing the right things in those for the AI to be informed by them. So let's talk about your website. Now, earlier I said that less and less people are going to go to your website, and that is true. But it's not like your website is not important anymore. Your website is the number 1 source for information about you for the AI search engine. So it is extremely valuable that your website is dialed in, is wicked fast, and I'm going to show you some things that you need to do because it's the number 1 place where an AI search engine will go and look for information. So the first thing is it has to be super fast. You've probably heard that your website needs to load quick because Google wants it to load quick, which is true. Google wants their search engine to be super fast because they want the consumer, when the consumer puts a query in, they want the results to come quick. Like nobody wants to wait a few seconds for the result to appear. So Google's been telling, us, marketing companies and business owners, make sure your website's fast, that it loads fast, because we want to be able to make that a source in the results, right? But if it loads slow, then we can't get the information, and so you fall out of the search engine rankings. Well, now that we're using AI search, there's a lot more activity that's happening in that search query process. Somebody searches you, the AI breaks that search query down into subqueries. It goes out to lots of different places, grabs the information and pulls it in. That process is a longer process, and so your website has to load wicked fast, under a second. 800 milliseconds is the recommendation. That is 2 to 3 times faster than what they've recommended in the past. So the number one thing you have to do is make sure your website loads quick. Otherwise, if it doesn't load quick, the AI search engine skips it and doesn't go there for any information. So that's the first thing. You can check this. Matter of fact, at the end, I will give you a way we can check this for you and see how fast your website is. So we'll come back to that. 2, you need to write the copy on your website for answers, not keywords. Now remember, the AI search engine's breaking that search query into subqueries. There's additional questions, okay? And it's looking for an answer specifically to that subquery question. So rather than writing a blog post, teeth whitening cost, which is a statement, right? You would say, how long does teeth whitening last? Which is a typical question that somebody might ask. Or you might, if you want to talk about cost, you would say, what does teeth whitening cost? You're writing your copy as if you're the patient typing in the query. Okay. Sounds a little bizarre, but you need to write your copy as if you were the patient asking the question. So it just fundamentally shifts the way that copy's written. So your website, your blog posts need to have questions and answers in those. One simple, easy way to do this is always have an FAQ section at the bottom of all of your service pages, as well as your blog posts, because you can just put the questions in there and have answers to them. So your copy needs to be different. 3, you need to have something called schema, and it has to be clean. Schema, this is a technical SEO activity. Your website company or the company that helped you build a website, or if you have an SEO company, should be doing this. But schema is basically it's like if the AI search engine comes to your house and they go to knock on the door, the schema is kind of like the door. If the door's not there and doesn't have a ringer, or it says, no solicitation or whatever, the information on the door, this is a bad analogy, but hopefully you'll get it. If it goes to knock on the door, if the door's not there, or it's jacked, or it doesn't have a lock on it or whatever, then it just ignores it and it doesn't go into the house to get the rest of the information. Bad analogy, but you get what I mean. So the AI search engine goes to your website and it looks at your schema first. It's who are you? What is this website about? What is this service page about? That information has to be correct, okay? And there are products that you can use to make sure that that's correct. You can go to schema.org and you can put your website in there, or any service page or any page in schema.org, and it'll tell you if you have problems with it. But your schema has to be correct. Otherwise, the AI search engine won't even go into the house to get the rest of the information. 4, you have to blog. No one wants to blog. It's a pain in the butt. We know. I recommend once a week, unless you're in a highly, highly competitive area where you might want to do it more than that. Once a week is a good blogging cadence, and it's producing enough information that it will feed into the AI search engines. So I don't know what to tell you. You're going to have to get somebody to write for you. We can do it for you if you need some help. This is exactly how we set up our service. Or you have to have somebody on your team that's a decent writer, and they need to be writing for answers, not just statements. Okay. And if you have questions about how to blog, I have about 50 articles on our blog about how to write for AI SEO. So just go to our blog and read some of the articles there. But you need to be writing new copy. Blogging is a great way to write for AI SEO because you can turn it into a question. You can write for questions very easily. So those are the 4 things you need to do for a website. Wicked fast, great schema. You have to write for answers, and you need to blog consistently. You have to be doing those things, or the AI search engine is going to skip over a lot of your content on your website. The second thing is your Google Business Profile. Your Google Business Profile is the primary identity that you have online. It's not your website. Your Google Business Profile, your name, your address, your phone, how to find your office, the pin in the map, the services, your primary category, all the information in there is absolutely critical. And the search engines look at your Google Business Profile to make sure that it's set up correctly and all the information is correct. It's not going to derive a lot of that from your website. That's going to come from your schema. But your Google Business Profile is a big deal. The other thing is that reviews are inside your Google Business Profile. So there's a few things that you need to make sure that you've done with your Google Business Profile so that it's basically doing what it needs to do in terms of it as a source for AI search engines. Number one, if you're a GP, your primary category should be dentist. If you're a pediatric dentist, your primary category should be pediatric dentist. If you're an orthodontist, it should be orthodontist. If you're a GP and you say your primary category is oral surgeon, it's going to screw it all up. Okay. Your primary category needs to be the specialty that you are. And then you want to add a second or a third category for additional services that you might offer. So for example, if you're a GP, but you do a lot of clear aligners, you might say dentist, orthodontist. So you make sure your primary category is correct. 2, you need to post to your Google Business Profile like it's a social media account. Almost no one is doing this. Inside of your Google Business Profile, there's a place where you can post information. And that information it's kind of like a social media account. You can have an image in there and some copy or whatnot. The benefit isn't necessarily getting followers on your Google Business Profile or even getting people to comment on it. It's just putting more content into your profile to inform Google that you're alive, you're concerned about your Google Business Profile, and you're adding more contextual data to it. It'll help big time. All right. The third thing is that you need to include adding services and service areas to your Google Business Profile. Let me explain what this is. Once you get into your GBP, Google Business Profile, GBP, you'll notice that there's a section where you can add locations. And this isn't like individual locations. It's the locations that you draw patients from. Google knows that you have a brick and mortar business, and you don't just pull people in from the town that you're in. You pull in patients from probably all over the place. And so you can add up to 20 locations. And this informs Google where you should potentially rank in like the Google map. So you want to include those 20 service areas. At the end here, I'm going to give you a resource where I can do some what's called heat mapping to show you where you're not ranking so that you can go into your Google Business Profile and update the locations so that you start ranking better in those areas. The next thing you want to do is you want to add services. So there's a section in there where you can say, oral surgery, if you offer oral surgery services, and you can describe it, or you can offer teeth whitening or root canals or whatever, Botox or whatever you want. But you can list as many services as you want. I've tested this. I have not found a limit. I put in at least 200 different services for a practice, and it didn't stop. It didn't say you're done. You can't add any more. You can add as many as you want. And this information isn't visible to a user. It's not visible to you if you just look at your Google Business Profile, but it's in the background. So if a patient searches something about Botox near them, but you don't have it listed as a service in your Google Business Profile, you're less likely to show up for Botox. So you want to go in and add as many services as you can possibly add to the services section in your GBP. The last thing you want to do is you want to start adding photos and videos. Again, it's not to get followers. It's just basically to inform Google that you are alive, you're here, and you care about how well you rank. And so you want to start adding all the photos that you possibly can. I would recommend that if you post to social media, a video or a photo to social media, post it to your Google Business Profile. Try and get at least 100 photos into your profile. All right, that's the GBP. You need to do those 4 things. That's just getting started, but do those 4 things, and that'll help you rank higher or establish your authority and be recommended by AI search. The next thing is social media. Social media has never been more important to search engine optimization than before. A few months ago, Google began indexing, or I should say Google Gemini, the AI search engine, began indexing social media accounts. Now, indexing means that it actually uses your social media accounts, all the posts that you've posted, all the comments and responses and so forth. It's actually looking at that now. Before this, it never even looked at it. So, a common conversation I would have with a doctor is, I want to do social media and I to help me rank higher. And I would say, social media is not indexed. You do social media because it's a great way to build relationships with patients. It's a great way to get followers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it didn't have any connection to ranking in regular search, and it didn't have any connection with AI search at all. Now the search engines, GPT, Gemini, Perplexity, all of them are indexing all of your social media content. And that's on Meta, Instagram, Facebook, that's Meta, and TikTok, LinkedIn, and YouTube Shorts. It's looking at all of the content you're pushing out, and it's seeing if anybody's commenting or saying something about you. So if you're not publishing on social media, you're missing out on a huge opportunity to become the authority in your community and be recommended by AI search. So here's what you need to do. You need to be publishing to 5 locations: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, TikTok, and your Google business profile. Those are the 5 places you definitely want to go. You can also publish to LinkedIn and Pinterest if you want, but these are the primary places you want to be publishing content. Really focus on YouTube Shorts. YouTube is owned by who? It's owned by Google. And there is a direct pipeline between your YouTube Shorts and the content you publish on YouTube and how Google Gemini is going to start recommending practices. So if you're publishing on YouTube Shorts, and we've seen plenty of data already, search data and some research papers that have been done on this, that if you're publishing to YouTube Shorts and the content is good and you're getting interaction, you start ranking higher in Google Gemini. You really want to add YouTube Shorts. It's not been something that we've done in the past or highly recommended most search engine optimization companies, but it is something you absolutely need to do now. You want to focus on video over photos. Video gets 2 times more views and 1,200% more shares or engagement on the content. And what we're looking for here in terms of posting online is we're looking for interaction. We are wanting our followers or our patients to say something about us, to comment, to share an emoji, to say something, some kind of interaction. And you're going to get that much, much higher with video than you are with photos. Now, if you don't have the capabilities to shoot video, I'm going to give you a resource here in a little bit that's super, super simple. But at least be publishing original good content to your social media accounts and encouraging interaction, because it's going to help you rank higher. So this is my resource that I'll give it to you for free. Every week in our social media product, we give our clients an idea. It's a TikTok idea, but it's a video idea, basically. Any idea that could be a video. So YouTube Shorts, TikTok, and Instagram Reels, those 3 places, and you can even post to the Facebook, but any place that takes video, you should publish video to those accounts. But the question is always like, what in the freaking crud do I publish? Like, what do I do? And so what we do is we look at trends on Instagram and TikTok that we think can translate into a dental trend, or a dentist could participate in that trend and it would be beneficial. And we kind of box it up into an email and we send it out every week. We explain what the video is, what the trend is, how to do it, and we'll give you even a timeline of how long it'll take. It'll take you 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it might be, in order to do the idea. If you just got this idea each week and did just this one idea and published it everywhere, you'd be light years ahead of almost every dental practice on the planet. So my recommendation, if you don't know where to get started, is to get this idea every week and do it. If you want to do more than that, then we have some other resources that you could look at, or we could help you. So at the end of this, I'll give you a way to get that weekly idea. There's no cost for it, but it's a great way to just put yourself on a video cadence. So that's social media. Online directories. Online directories are reference checks for AI. Your Google business profile is the #1 online directory listing, kind of like we talked about before. But there are lots of other directories. There's Healthgrades, there's Bing, Yahoo, if anybody still even uses that, but that's a directory, right? There's Best Dentist Network, a directory we built, like Vitals or WebMD or whatever. But these are all just like health-related directories or giant directories like Google Business Profile that have your information in it. Now, in the past, the reason why you would put your information on directories is because you would get a link, right? So if I were to go to Healthgrades and search your practice and see it, there would be a link to your website. That's called an inbound link. And that's beneficial. And in the past, it's been really, really, really valuable. Those inbound links were looked at as kind of like a confidence check or a vote of confidence, right? If you had lots of links coming in, then Google would say, oh, well, this is obviously a valuable practice. These guys know what they're doing. A lot of people are linking to them, especially the directories, and it helped you rank. That is not as valuable anymore. all of the AI search engines are kind of downplaying a little bit of the value of a link, and they're upplaying other content like your social media content and so forth. But what it does do is there is still an aspect of this that establishes credibility. But more so, we're finding that in the results, so when you go to ChatGPT and you search for, a dental phrase, pretending like you're a patient, and you search and you look at the sources of where the AIs are going to look for information and grab it, they're actually looking a lot at what are called hyper local directories. So they'll look at Yelp, and unfortunately everybody hates Yelp, but they'll look there, they'll look at your GBP and Bing and so forth. But then we're finding that they're finding like this local directory. And it's not a directory that's a national directory. It's like only specific to your area. And they're referencing these local directories. It's a lot of the time. I did a search just last week. I think I was just looking for who is the best dentist in San Antonio, I think was the phrase or something like that. And on the left is the bottom part of the recommendation. And right at the bottom of the recommendation, there's a little link called sources. You can click on that. And on the right, you'll see where the AI went to search and find information. Where are those sources at, right? And the ones that I circled, those 5 are all hyper local directories. They're not national directories like health grades. They're only directories that are in San Antonio. So what the AI search engines are doing here is they're digging deeper into getting information about you. If you're not listed in the local directories, you miss out on probably a ton of credibility and authority, but potentially search traffic. So our recommendation is that you make sure that all of your directories are correct, and then you start looking for local directories and submitting your practice into those local directories. The last thing is user-generated content. UGC, user-generated content, is any content online that you didn't write. It's from somebody else, right? And you can understand why search engines are looking for this. This used to not be a big part of the search engine in traditional search, because the search engines they didn't have the know-how or the power behind them to go grab all this information. But the AI search engines are built in a way to go look for this, because the search engines understand human language and they understand context and sentiment. They can now look at comments online about you, understand what it is, and use it as part of the recommendation. So UGC is a big, big part, and you get your UGC from primarily reviews. So get tons of Google reviews, get Healthgrades reviews, get Facebook reviews, any kind of review online, and get tons of social media comments, which means you have to be publishing social media content for you to get comments. They're looking at the interaction between you and your patient and what your patient is saying about you. And you can think about that. How much more valuable is it for what somebody says about you rather than what you say about yourself? It's just kind of obvious. And the AI search engines are just eating that stuff up. So you have to focus on trying to get people to talk about you. And those are the 2 primary ways to do it: reviews and social media. Another aspect are like large national forums like Reddit and Quora, where it's just a huge like user-generated content engine. Reddit has been a big part of this AI search results. So if you are publishing on Reddit content or commenting on Reddit comments, that also gets sucked in and becomes part of the source in the recommendation from AI. So the way to think about all of this is, well, this UGC, post to social media, get tons of reviews, respond to comments. If you can get on Reddit and start interacting with people in your community on Reddit, that will help. Now, thinking about this is a fundamental shift in the way that marketing is done. It used to be that you would go to a marketing company and say, hey, will you help me build a website? And then you might talk to somebody else about a social media service, or you might talk to somebody else about a review service. And what's happening, and this is not being driven by the marketing companies, it's being driven by the way that the AI search engines read and aggregate and come up and respond and create recommendations in their search algorithm. You have to be doing all of these things. There needs to be a comprehensive approach to the way that you're presenting yourself online. And so you have to be writing content for your website. You have to be updating your Google Business Profile and posting to it. Your social media activity has to be happening. Online directories, you need to be looking for online directories that are hyper local and submitting your practice data to those local directories. And you've got to get tons of UGC. If you don't have certain parts of that, you're less likely to establish your authority and become the recommended practice. So with that, there are a few things to help you get started. Now, I've been doing this for almost 16 years, specifically working with dentists. And I used to think that dentists kind of do their own marketing. Okay. And this is not a sales pitch. This is just my God's honest truth. And we actually built our products that were mostly DIY kind of products. Like our social media product was one where we would just give you ideas and you kind of like ran with it. Or we would, give you recommendations on how to improve your marketing. That was part of our service, right? I just don't think now with the complexity of the AI search that a practice can manage it on their own. I really don't think that. You're going to save a whole hell of a lot more money and time hiring a good agency. But with that said, I'm going to give you some resources to help you get started. And I just want you to think as you use these resources, would it be simpler for maybe having My Social Practice help you do this? And we would love to, and we would love to see if we can help you meet your goals. Here are the resources that I'm going to give you. Hit that QR code. If you give us your name and how to contact you, where to send all this stuff, I'll send it out. But basically, I want to do an AI SEO audit. An audit is it's basically looking to see if you are already being recommended in ChatGPT and Google Gemini for certain search phrases. Maybe like you doing this. You go to ChatGPT in an incognito window. Okay. So you're in an incognito window and you go to ChatGPT and you search, hey, I need to find the best dentist in your city who takes insurance. You hit go and you see if you're listed in there. And you go to the sources and you see where the sources are, where it's looking for source information. That's an audit on one keyword phrase. In the audit that I'll do for you guys, we look at over 200 phrases. And we don't just look in ChatGPT, we look in Perplexity, Gemini, and ChatGPT. And we come up with a 1 to 100 score that will basically say, here's how well you're doing in terms of your AI SEO. And it will give us instructions. Like we do this for every single practice that comes to us that wants our AI SEO product. We run an audit first, but that audit informs like, what are the next steps? What things do you need to do in order to improve it? So I can run that audit for you. Won't charge you anything. It does take some time to do it. And we can instruct you on like where you're at and what needs to be done. Second thing is I'm going to add you to the weekly roundup social media idea. That's the idea, the TikTok or Instagram Reels video idea. It'll come out every week, and I encourage you to take that idea and do it. We'll run a Google Page Speed Insight test. This is basically to see how fast your website is loading and if there are any problems, like are there broken links? What's the slowest part of your site? Is there ways to improve it? But we're shooting for under a second load speed. In the report, you're going to get two numbers. You're going to get a number for how well you're loading on a desktop and how well you're loading on mobile, and they need to be above 90%. Okay. That's the score. And this is not our product. This is Google's product. This is what Google has said. Use this product to test how well your website is loading, how fast it is. And then I'll also have somebody, myself or a member of our team, give you some additional suggestions on what next steps should be. If you want to bring this in-house and you want to try and implement this somehow from inside of your practice, be our guest. This will definitely give you some starting point of where to go. But when we get into it, you may want to just hire somebody to do it because there's quite a bit there. So we'll explain what needs to be done. If you want to do it in-house, great. If you need some help, please lean on us. We'd love to be your partner. So there you go. That's how things are working in today's AI SEO world. I hope you found this helpful. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us. We would love to talk with you.